Welcome you. Okay, so today we're diving into dating, something pretty much everyone bumps into, right? You
Yes.
shared some really interesting bits from, it's just a Fing date, some sort of book about dating. And yeah, what jumped out at me was this idea they have that, actual dating seems kind of pushed aside by hookups and just hanging out. And, well, maybe that's not making singles too happy.
That's definitely a core point they make. Their whole mission, I think, is trying to bring back a focus on quality.
Right.
Quality connections, not just, quantity. They kind of hint that maybe dating used to have more structure, and losing that has made things kind of confusing now.
Exactly. And the book style.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's direct. No messing around with the advice.
Yeah.
So our plan today is to really get into that straightforward approach, pull out the useful stuff, the bits that can actually help you, navigate this whole dating world. Okay, let's get started.
Sounds good. So they kick things off by prepping you for what they call winter dating. It's a catchy phrase, right? Captures that idea of taking it seriously, but also remembering, hey, it's just a Fing date. Don't freak out. And right away, in that section, there's a pretty strong warning.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. The bit about needing a new way of dating and living and old habits are not welcome. Pretty intense.
Right.
Doesn't sound like they want you to just skim it. Feels like they expect some real changes in how you think.
Definitely. And what's really interesting is their whole foundation for this belief that dating, way back when, was more structured, maybe even worked better. They literally say our generation kind of fed that one up. It's bold, but it makes you pause.
It does. And, there's something to that, isn't there? That need for clarity they talk about, like someone actually asking you on a proper date versus just endlessly hanging out. Seems like the old way maybe gave you a clearer picture, which often feels missing today.
Exactly. That clarity, knowing the intention, that's huge for setting expectations, right? Understanding where things might be going or, well, not going. And then, boom, they drop these super extraordinary principles of ultra successful winter dating. Quite the name. And those first 6 principles, they really set the stage.
Right. Okay, let's run through those first 6 quickly. Number 1, like yourself and know you're worthy. 2, get a life, have a life. 3, pretty is as pretty does. 4, don't accept less than an actual date. 5, don't freak people out with your need. And number 6, doormats finish last and end up in the dirt. Woof, that last one pulls no punches.
They really don't mince words, but if you look at those first principles together, there's a clear theme, right? It's all about valuing yourself. They flat out say, you decide what your time is worth, and importantly, what your company is worth. That's a really powerful starting point for how you approach dating.
Okay, let's dig into that first one then. Like yourself and know you're worthy seems fundamental, and they treat it that way. They even tell you to. Like, stop hating your thighs.
Yeah. It's so direct, isn't it? They basically ask you point blank, why can't you just accept yourself? For once, it's really personal. And they make this strong link between how you feel about yourself and the kind of energy you put out there.
That's it. They're saying if you're carrying around negativity about yourself, you give off this, I don't know, heavy vibe. Kind of sad. And that can actually repel opportunities, including dates. Like your internal feelings are broadcasting something.
And the flip side. When you genuinely like yourself, value who you are, you naturally feel like you deserve good things. And you're way more likely to attract them like that rockin' boyfriend they mentioned. They even simplify it. You become great by being great. And that takes effort, self-care.
It's not just some vague self-love thing either. They talk about actively rebuilding your self-esteem, your confidence through these tiny victories. Kind of like that. Small, steady actions that make you feel a bit better. Like even flossing counts. It's almost like, behavior therapy, small good habits, changing your mood.
Exactly. These little acts of self-care, small wins, they reinforce that you are worthy. And, like the authors say, your unwillingness to compromise on respecting yourself, that becomes super attractive because it shows you value yourself.
Now, the book uses real questions from readers, which is cool, makes it relatable. Like the person whose engagement ended asking, but what if I'm not worthy? Their advice is pretty straightforward, right?
Totally. They basically say, look, don't blame yourself. A relationship ending just means it wasn't the right fit. Crucially, you can't let someone else define your worth. You got to build that inside yourself. They even suggest thinking back to a time before that relationship when you felt really good about yourself.
Then there's Claire in Minneapolis. Calls herself a loser magnet. Keeps attracting guys who cheat or are just wrong. The authors are blunt there, too, with that water seeks its own level thing.
Yeah, it's a very direct metaphor. The point isn't that she's a loser, but that she's attracting that dynamic right now. And to change it, she needs to look inward, shift her own internal stuff. It kind of touches on how our self-perception can unconsciously draw certain types of people to us.
And Anika, lost weight but still not getting dates? That's got to be frustrating, and I bet a lot of people relate.
Right. But what's insightful is their take. Anika's probably still operating from her old mindset. Physically, she's changed, but maybe inside she still feels like the before person. And that affects how she comes across. They really stress needing not just look different, but to genuinely feel worthy and project that confidence.
Florence feels like she just has bad luck, always overlooked. The authors kind of flip that script, don't they?
They do. They basically say what feels like external bad luck might actually be more of a personal crisis of how she sees herself. It's the story she's telling herself, not some outside force. They tell her to be kinder to herself, challenge that negative talk.
I really like that from the other side of the fence story. The guy in the women's boutique listening to conversations. It shows how attractive just accepting yourself can be. Like Susan with the good-sized nose. It wasn't about looking perfect, it was her confidence.
That story is great because it's just observation from a guy's perspective. He was drawn to Susan because she seemed okay with herself, not looking for approval. It really proves that inner confidence just shines outwards, and it's
Yeah.
really attractive.
And Mavis's story, so good. Realizing she was always putting others first, compromising herself. And then when she finally started valuing herself, bam, she found a loving partner.
It's a perfect example, isn't it? That internal shift leads directly to different external results. Once she knew her worth, she naturally drew in someone who saw it too and treated her well.
There's also that quick bit about the woman realizing she constantly put herself down on dates. Seems obvious, maybe, but I bet it's easy to do without noticing.
Oh, totally. That self-deprecation, it could be a real turnoff. Shows a lack of confidence, makes the other person feel kind of awkward, maybe even sorry for you. Not exactly attraction fuel.
It all leads up to those personal inventory time questions. They seem designed to make you think back, right? Remember when you felt awesome and figure out what changed.
Exactly. Reconnect with that best version of yourself, figure out what made you feel that way, and then actively try to get back there. It's a really practical way to rediscover and rebuild that self-worth.
Okay, moving on. Principle, #2. Get a life, have a life. Seems pretty simple. Don't make dating your entire universe.
That's the core of it, yeah. They argue that having your own full, interesting life makes you more attractive anyway. Plus, it stops you from becoming too dependent on someone, especially early on, which can be unhealthy.
They make a really clear point about pretending to have a life versus actually having one. That pretending, just pure game playing and misery, they say. Authenticity seems crucial here.
Right. They really push you to actually make those plans with friends, keep them, because those connections matter just as much. And not ditching your own life for every new potential date is a big theme.
Geraldine's story from Edmonton really shows this, doesn't it? How having her own stuff going on, friends, interests, actually made her relationship with Mitchell better. They had more to talk about, valued their time together more.
It shows that shift perfectly. When a partner fits into your already awesome life instead of becoming your whole life, it's just healthier, more sustainable. Plus, it adds a bit of mystery, maybe. Keeps things from feeling suffocating too soon.
And Amira's first-person single bit really nails it. She talks about actively building a life she loved first and then finding a partner, saying a lot of guys actually kind of complicated the great life she already had.
Her advice is super direct. If you don't like your life, change it. Take charge. It's about creating that foundation of happiness for yourself so a partner is a bonus, not a requirement for feeling okay.
The thoughts from Man City add another layer, saying it's even better when a partner falls for your life too, not just you, the whole package deal being attractive.
Exactly. It suggests a rich life is a big part of your appeal. And that dating fortune cookie sums it up. You are the architect of your own life, so build one that you love living in. Really puts the power back in your hands.
That story about the woman almost ditching her Vegas trip for a guy who just wanted to be friends? Ouch. That's a serious warning sign, isn't it? Shows how easily you can prioritize something uncertain over something real and valuable.
It's a really clear reminder to keep your existing life going. Don't sacrifice things that matter to you for someone whose intentions are still, totally up in the air.
And finally, the simple point. Having an interesting life gives you stuff to talk about on dates. Makes you more engaging.
Absolutely. A life with different experiences just makes for better conversation. Makes you seem more well-rounded, interesting, shows you're actually out there living.
Okay, principle #3, pretty is as pretty does. Now, this isn't just about looks, right? It seems broader than that.
Definitely not just looks. It's more about the effort you put into yourself. showing you care about yourself, your well-being. It's how you present yourself, showing self-respect.
That story about the woman who lost her cheerleader energy, that's pretty vivid, how her change in appearance seemed connected to losing confidence. It wasn't about not being pretty, it was how she presented herself.
Yeah, her frumpy outfits were the antithesis of confident cheerleader. It wasn't about meeting some beauty standard. It was that visible shift in how she carried herself, the energy she gave off.
They stress that styling out, making an effort, tells the world you value yourself, and that guys actually notice and appreciate that effort. It's like nonverbal communication.
That's a really important point. It's not about perfection. It's about making a conscious effort. And Greg's story, his worst date ever, where the woman's messy place and just generally disheveled look felt like a warning sign. That really brings it home from a guy's view. Suggests the outside can kind of reflect the inside sometimes.
That idea of outdressing the enemy is kind of motivating too. The enemy being anything, even your own doubts holding you back.
It's a cool way to frame it, right? Action-oriented, like putting on your armor of self-care and confidence when you go out into the world, especially when dating.
Okay, but what about that worry? What if the thing I'm putting out there attracts the wrong guys? How do they tackle that?
Their take is basically a grumpy or negative vibe is usually less attractive overall than being positive and approachable. It's about showing you're open to connection, not trying to scare off bad attention with negativity, which probably scares off good attention too.
And for people who feel like stylistically impaired, their advice is pretty nice, focusing on the effort, not needing amazing fashion sense.
Exactly. It's about putting in some genuine effort to look in a way that makes you feel good, even if you're not a fashionista. Mallory's "It Worked For Me" story backs this up, how she realized appearance mattered after years of being kind of too cool to care.
Amira's story about meeting Greg at the hair salon, looking kind of messy.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder, too, that, yeah, effort matters, but your actual personality still comes through. Authenticity is still key.
It shows that even when you're not done up, if you've got that solid sense of self, it shows. But yeah, the main principle holds. Making an effort with your appearance generally gets noticed and appreciated.
And the dating fortune cookie for this one is great, shifts the focus. You don't have to be pretty to be attractive, widens the definition, makes it more achievable.
It really highlights that attractiveness is more than just looks. It's confidence, effort, how you carry yourself, the whole package.
Principle #4 is super clear. Don't accept less than an actual date. This feels like a really central part of their whole philosophy.
Oh, it definitely is. They define a real date as having clear romantic intention, needing some scheduling, some thought put into it, and something you absolutely deserve. They're really pushing back hard against settling for wishy-washy hanging out.
They're really pointing out that cycle where hanging out often just drifts, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't lead anywhere serious, especially if that's what you want. And they mention how men and women might see hanging out differently. One seeing it as serious potential, the other maybe as a shortcut to sex or just casual fun.
That potential mismatch in what you both expect, that's a huge issue they focus on. For a lot of women, hanging out might feel like progress towards something real, but for some guys, it might just be a way to get physical without the dating label or commitment.
Amanda's question nails this modern dating problem. Hanging out is so easy with hookup culture, but it clashes with wanting something deeper.
It totally captures that dilemma, yeah. Casual is easy to find, but lots of people still want that real connection, the clarity that, actual dating used to provide.
There's also that fear people have. What if I scare him off by asking for a real date? The authors have a strong comeback for that, don't they?
They do. They basically ask, what kind of person would be scared off by someone wanting an actual date? It challenges the fear, suggests someone genuinely interested would probably appreciate you being clear.
Eden asking how to get a shy guy to ask her out is interesting. But the authors say the rule still applies. You still deserve clarity, an actual date.
Shy or not, the basic principle of respecting yourself holds. You shouldn't have to settle for less than someone clearly showing they're interested romantically, however they manage to do it.
The book also mentions hooking up too early and how that can box you in, right? Like
Yeah.
making it easier for a guy to see you as just a booty call instead of potential girlfriend material.
Yeah, getting physical too soon can kind of set the relationship's tone in a way you didn't intend, especially if you want more. If the physical happens before a real emotional connection, you risk defining things on a more casual level.
Patrick's story is cool, realizing that just asking for a date made him feel more confident. Flips the script a bit. Shows being direct can be empowering for everyone.
It really does. It shows actually stating your intention, asking someone out, Can feel good for the asker, too, whatever the answer is.
Chrissy's "It worked for me" story is awesome, feeling good about herself for the first time in ages just by deciding, nope, not accepting less than a proper date. Shows the power of self-worth, setting boundaries.
It really shows the positive kickback you get from setting that basic boundary, demanding that minimum level of respect and effort.
And Amiira saying how turning down hangout invites actually led to more real date offers and clearer intentions from guys. That's powerful. Suggests valuing your time and being clear really works.
It truly shows that when you value your own time and say what you want, you tend to get more aligned interactions. It filters things.
The thoughts from Man City. The guy realizing he'd never actually asked a woman he was sleeping with on a date. That's a bit of a reality check, isn't it? Shows how easily that traditional, maybe important step gets skipped in casual scenarios.
It does. Highlights how significant just asking can be, the different vibe it creates. And that section, it's just a Fing date 1, really pushes you to take charge, set up your own new dating policy based on these ideas.
Okay, principle #5. Don't freak people out with your need. This sounds like it's about managing expectations, not seeming too intense early on.
Exactly. They warn against overwhelming someone new with too much neediness. Like, don't plan the wedding after date 1, or constantly text demanding reassurance. It's about letting things develop naturally.
They're clear. It's not about playing games or being fake, right? More about healthy restraint, letting a real connection grow at its own speed without pressure.
It's about respecting their space, their emotional pace. The example of the person joking about marriage on the first date. Even if it was a joke, it shows how easily things can sound loaded or needy super early.
Petra's story, with her anxiety and needing constant reassurance, that really illustrates what they're warning against. It can make the other person feel like they have to manage your feelings.
It does. Constantly needing that external validation can be exhausting for the other person, might push them away. It signals maybe a lack of inner security. And yeah, people develop feelings at their own pace.
They also explore that fine line between being honest about feelings and just being needy. Like being too enthusiastic on a first date. Seems like a tricky balance.
It is tricky. Showing interest is good, obviously. But overwhelming someone with declarations or assumptions too soon can be off-putting. Marcus's view, feeling freaked out by someone being too available right away, really drives this home.
The story of the woman who learned to lean on her friends when feeling insecure, instead of dumping it all on a new guy, that's really practical, healthy advice. Shows the importance of having support outside the new relationship.
It highlights how crucial a good friend network is, especially when you're feeling vulnerable in early dating. Stops you from putting too much pressure on the new person.
They point out that too much neediness can feel like a burden, rushes things unnaturally. And conversely, being selective in dating comes from not being needy, not feeling desperate.
That's a key point. When you're secure, not desperately needing validation or a relationship, you can date more thoughtfully. Choose people who actually fit with you.
They even mentioned the original world-famous Winner Daters workbook and an exercise in it about figuring out your fears, why you might seek validation from others, suggests digging deeper into why someone might be needy.
It does, understanding the anxieties or insecurities behind it, and those, if he doesn't like you, questions. They're designed to challenge negative thoughts, build up your own resilience.
And that chalkboard exercise, I will not be needy or a crazy person. I will concentrate on how I feel because that is what's important. Very direct mantra.
It's a really clear self-reminder, isn't it? Focus on your emotional well-being, managing yourself, not constantly looking outside for approval when dating.
Finally, we get to principle #6. Doormats finish last and end up in the dirt. Okay, this one sounds like it's all about having standards, boundaries.
Absolutely. Knowing your worth and not putting up with treatment or behavior that falls below your personal standards for respect, consideration, that kind of thing.
And right away, they challenge those really rigid, maybe superficial deal breakers that might come more from insecurity than real incompatibility issues.
That's a really important difference they make. They suggest healthy standards, unlike those fear-based deal breakers, are things like mutual respect, consideration, having a purpose, wanting to be around good people, things about character and values.
Laws asked about being upfront about wanting something serious early on, and the authors support that. Fits with having clear standards and communicating them.
Yes, they totally back her honesty, emphasize matching with someone who wants the same things, but then Arabelle's situation setting the bar low at first, then trying to change the rules later. That really shows why you need clear, consistent communication about your needs from the start.
And Eliza asking about religion as a standard or deal breaker. That brings up how core values, like faith, often set the foundation for big life choices, making them pretty important for compatibility long term.
It highlights how deep values really shape your life and what you need in a partner. They also touch on maybe unfair deal breakers like height, again, separating superficial preferences from things that genuinely affect compatibility.
The story about the successful guy who stuck to his standards after being undervalued in a past relationship, that really shows a positive side of having standards and sticking to them.
It shows holding out for what you know you deserve can lead to better, more respectful relationships down the line. That moment of clarity with the fancy dual-lit toaster, it's a memorable symbol they use for having uncompromising standards, recognizing and wanting quality in toasters and relationships.
And the story about the online match falling apart because the guy treated service staff badly, that's a powerful example of how watching someone's everyday behavior, their values in action, is a crucial standard. It's not just about how they treat you.
It really shows that paying attention to how someone treats everyone reveals a lot about their character, whether your core values actually line up.
Okay, now we get to a section with a very memorable title. Don't show the movie before the trailer. Making sex an event, not a given. This feels like a really big piece of their advice, especially if you want something serious.
It's definitely crucial to their whole philosophy. They talk a lot about anticipation, making things more meaningful, more memorable. And when it comes to dating, they strongly suggest not rushing into sex, particularly if your goal is a serious, lasting relationship.
They explain that sex just changes things. Whether you mean it to or not, it can create feelings that weren't there, or weirdly make someone pull back, especially really early on.
Exactly. They argue you lose very little by waiting until you have a stronger emotional connection, but you risk quite a bit by jumping in physically too soon. They even share from their experience that a lot of guys admit feeling kind of over it after casual sex, even if they can't really explain why.
The anecdote about the reader who deliberately waited to sleep with the musician she was dating and was glad she did, that really backs up this idea of building anticipation, making the eventual intimacy feel more significant.
It highlights the potential payoff of holding back a bit, letting a deeper bond form first. They also suggest waiting shows self-respect, and that can actually attract partners who value more than just the physical side.
The advice for the reader in that casual sex situation to consciously pull back on the physical side and see how the guy reacts, that's a pretty direct way to test what his interest is really based on.
It's a test, yeah. Is he interested beyond the physical? Amira's personal story about regretting sleeping with someone too soon, how shitty it made her feel. That adds a really honest, relatable angle to this.
Even that surprising bit about rock stars, guys with tons of options often being more intrigued by women who didn't jump into bed right away, it suggests that saying no, or rather not yet, can sometimes actually increase attraction and perceived value.
It challenges that assumption that immediate sex is always the best way to build attraction. The story of the woman who had a great first date but went home alone. Creating that anticipation for the next time, that illustrates the principle perfectly.
They really emphasize that people get to real feelings, real commitment at their own speed. Rushing the physical side can mess up that natural progression, maybe end something potentially good too early. The analogy of relationships being like fancy desserts meant to be savored, not inhaled. That works well.
It paints a great picture, right? Taking your time lets you actually appreciate getting to know someone. They also tackle that fear of the one that got away, suggesting that even good relationships might just have a natural endpoint, and forcing intimacy won't change that.
They stress how important building shared experiences and memories early on is beyond just sex. That's the foundation for something lasting. It's about connecting on lots of levels.
Exactly. Those shared non-physical experiences build a stronger bond, deeper understanding, which helps you get through the rough patches later.
They repeat. Sex isn't a tool to get a relationship. It should happen naturally within one, based on respect and growing feelings.
Okay, now we shift into the new laws of attraction, finding potential partners. This seems more about the practical side, meeting people, early interactions.
Yes, and a key idea right off the bat is not having an expectation is the new black. Meaning, be present, enjoy the date itself, but don't get hung up on where it's going or what it means right away.
They remind us, comfortingly, that most people are nervous on first dates. Helps normalize those jitters. And they strongly advise against sitting by the phone afterwards. Get on with your life, do your own thing.
Absolutely vital for keeping your sanity and avoiding that desperate feeling. They even give scenarios for what it might mean if a guy doesn't call next day, 2 days a week, and practical advice on how to handle it, how to respond, basically reinforcing your own worth. The advice to not feel like you have to reply to texts if there hasn't been a call feels quite firm, but it ties back to that principle of wanting clear effort. And those assertive but polite text replies they suggest, nudging towards a phone call, those are really empowering.
It's about setting your standard for communication, one that reflects you value yourself and prefer a more personal connection. That simple reminder, you're worth tracking down, really sticks with you.
Suggesting a dating journal. Yeah, they admit it might feel a bit homeworky, but it does seem like a good way to reflect, track experiences, see patterns, learn from things.
It can definitely provide valuable insights. They also give good tips for second dates, like maybe avoid his place for a movie or yours for, well, or just drinks again. Pick something that lets you interact more, learn more about each other.
And the idea of dating multiple people without sex early on. To get perspective, avoid putting all your eggs in one basket too soon. That's an interesting strategy they put forward.
It lets you compare different people, different vibes, without the complication of physical intimacy muddying the waters. Might help you make clearer choices about who you actually want to focus on later.
Next up, the power of suggestion. How to get asked out. This flips it from waiting around to being more proactive, creating opportunities.
Exactly. They argue women can actually help make dating easier for men by having that relaxed, it's just a date vibe, taking some pressure off.
They give really concrete, fun examples of how to respond to casual hangout invites. Gently but clearly pushing towards an actual date. I like the one about being booked through the next millennium for hangouts. Playful, but gets the message across.
Those are great examples of stating your preference confidently but nicely, not confrontational. They also suggest being even bolder, directly suggesting a specific date and activity yourself. That can feel really powerful.
Greg gives a male viewpoint on women asking men out. He mentions the traditional idea that men should ask, might be more invested if they pursue. But he also acknowledges women have agency, and it can work well sometimes. It's balanced.
It recognizes both the old dynamics and the newer reality, where women absolutely can and do take the initiative. Then they get into flirting, how that's key for signaling interest, making it more likely you get asked out. And they give really specific, actionable tips.
Yeah, those flirting tips are like a mini guide. Dress in a way that makes you feel good, not hiding yourself. Make eye contact, smile, be playful, maybe a little suggestive. Use subtle touch if appropriate. Keep your body language open. It's all about conveying, I'm interested and approachable.
It's about putting out that welcoming energy, signaling you're open to connecting. They even give specific lines you could use to gently nudge a guy towards asking you out. Take some of the guesswork out of it.
They tackle that common worry, all the good ones are taken, by reminding us that lots of good guys are looking too, and might just need a little encouragement, a clear signal. And again, the power of a simple smile and eye contact gets emphasized.
Often it's those small, nonverbal things that make the biggest difference in showing you're interested and open. They encourage finding ways to signal interest that feel bold but still comfortable to you, and give more examples of fun, maybe unexpected ways to prompt a date invitation.
The online dating section follows, and they're clear. Same standards apply online as offline. No different rules.
Absolutely. They don't treat it like a separate world, and they give very specific practical advice on making your profile work for you.
Yep, the photo advice is super detailed. Current Gwyneth Paltrow style shot first, then personality pick, a favorite, then a full body one. They're definitely thinking about that first visual impact, making it well-rounded.
And the headline advice. Excellent. Be specific, reveal something real about you, your interest, your personality, not just generic stuff. The good versus bad examples really show the difference.
The essay advice, too, show personality, humor, what you like, avoid cliches, don't act like you're too good for online dating, be specific. That example of a weak versus strong answer for tell us about you is really helpful.
It really drives home. Be authentic, give people something real to connect with. And importantly, they say meet in person pretty quickly once you sense potential online. Don't just stay online forever. That face-to-face is crucial for chemistry.
Okay, the first date. They repeat, don't be overly invested yet. Keep expectations low. It actually makes for a better experience.
Lets you relax, be more present, less worried about, is this the one? They say be easygoing, open, but not easy in a way that drops your standards or boundaries.
There are definitely do's and seriously don'ts. Lists are super handy. Do's, be on time, be yourself, listen well, offer to split or let him pay gracefully,
Yeah.
say thanks, and let him know if you had fun if you did. Seems like basic respect, good manners.
Exactly. And the don'ts are just as key. Don't drink too much. Don't trash talk exes constantly. Don't ask super invasive questions right away. Don't go back to his place. Don't overshare intense personal stuff. That childbirth story example, memorable. And just generally, try not to be negative or a bummer.
They frame first dates as practice. Good practice for future dates, learning what you like, takes the pressure off each one. And they end with that great call to action. Carpe datum. Seize the dating day.
It's about seeing every first date as a chance to connect, learn something, whether or not it leads anywhere else.
Then, after the first date, they bring back not having an expectation is the new black, and strongly advise against dissecting every word, every gesture. Call friends, focus on you, and letting the guy make the next move, not reaching out first. That seems like a core part of their strategy.
It's about giving him space to show his interest level, not imposing your hopes onto the silence. They go over those what if he doesn't call scenarios again, stressing, keep living your life, don't obsess, and sticking to that no text reply without a call rule reinforces your communication standard.
Those assertive text replies, encouraging a call pop up again here, really hammering home that boundary, expecting a more personal contact if interest is real. The message is loud and clear. You deserve an actual phone call, not just lazy texts.
It reinforces valuing your time and wanting effort that matches genuine interest in getting to know you more.
And finally, we land on sexclusivity, getting it on and locking it down. As the title implies pretty directly, this is about sex and commitment.
And their position is very clear. If you want a committed, exclusive relationship, they strongly advise waiting to have sex. They really push the idea that exclusivity and sex should happen together, not using sex hoping it leads to exclusivity. They argue sexual desire is normal, but often fades faster than deep connection.
They keep coming back to valuing yourself, slowing things down in dating, especially physically. They explain how sex changes the relationship's path, can lead to mismatched ideas about a commitment, emotional investment.
It can create a kind of fake intimacy or a sense of obligation that isn't really there yet. Might even hide basic incompatibilities. They stress sex should matter, have value in the relationship. It should signal seriousness about one person, ideally within an exclusive bond.
They make that critical point. Sex isn't a strategy to get commitment. It should be a natural result of having already established commitment and exclusivity. They even suggest testing the waters about exclusivity before getting physical. Maybe by mentioning you're thinking of stopping seeing other people.
It's a way to open that conversation about intentions before adding the complexity of sex. Avoids messy situations later. They also emphasize making the first time together a planned, meaningful event. Give it some weight.
They're careful to say this isn't about being anti-sex or asexual. It's about consciously building something solid and memorable first. They also point out how hard it is to turn a purely casual, physical thing into something committed later.
They even share personal stories about having different categories for women, the ones they dated versus the ones they called late night. Underscores how early sex can sometimes put you in the casual box. They suggest waiting even just a couple of weeks. Usually has no real downside, only potential benefits. Amiira's story about waiting 6 months after her marriage ended, leading to a deeper connection next time. That's a powerful, real-life example.
They also throw in a warning about drinking too much lowers inhibitions, maybe standards too.
Yeah.
And that line, eager is for beavers, definitely gets the point across about not seeming desperate or too available. They explain how being overly available can make the other person feel responsible for you, which can feel like neediness.
Creates an imbalance, yeah. They advise not spilling everything about yourself right away. Let trust build. Let the other person earn that deeper knowledge of you over time. And they wrap this section with a firm zip it reminder for restraint, followed by one last carpe datum.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this whole really detailed deep dive on, it's just a Fing date together.
Yeah.
The big message seems to be date intentionally, know your own worth, have your own life, and be really thoughtful about intimacy if you want something meaningful and lasting.
Absolutely. The authors give you a very direct, sometimes funny, but ultimately practical guide for navigating dating that focus on self-respect, clear communication, knowing your value. Those are the huge takeaways. We really hope digging into this has given you some useful, maybe actionable things to think about for your own dating life.
Yeah. So now that we've unpacked all this, maybe take a second to think about your own experiences, those hangout invites you get, or maybe even give. Are they really getting you closer to what you want? Or could applying some of these winter dating ideas maybe lead to more intentional, more fulfilling interactions? Definitely something to chew on. And seriously, thank you for sharing these excerpts. It's been a really fascinating deep dive.